Keith Carlock. You've heard him even if you think you haven't heard him, if you've crossed paths with any modern drumming in the past 20 years. Whether it's drummers like Mark Juliana, Nate Wood, Lewis Cole, Arthur Natick, or countless others, you've probably encountered this broken, breakbeatish style. It's something a friend once called New York fusion, and which I and my music school buddies used to call 55-bar fusion. And the godfather of this style, among others, is Keith Carlock. He of Steely Dan, and before that, the fusion bands of Wayne Krantz, which often included bassist Tim LaFave. Like, just as an example, here's a sick Lewis Cole break. And here's Keith. So Keith's influence has been huge on modern drumming, and if you're watching this, you probably already know that. But what actually makes him sound like Keith? Like, if you had to break down the secret elements that make Keith sound like Keith, could you? Well, today we're going to take a stab. I'm Nate, and people call me the 80/20 drummer. And on this channel, we look into this type of thing. And it's worth saying that I've been a Keith fan since the early 2000s, when music school buddies and I would go down to the 55 bar to hear him with Wayne Krantz, and it was like this really hard to describe thing. But it got you in the gut. Then you needed more. So today we'll look at why. We're going to look at 7 things that made Keith sound like Keith, some of which you probably haven't thought of. And this is important because if you understand what makes Keith sound good, maybe you can apply some of that to your today on 80/20. 7 reasons why Keith Carlock sounds so good. Stay tuned. And folks, today's video is brought to you by me, the 80/20 drummer. We're going to go through 7 separate reasons Keith sounds like Keith, and some of those are going to require transcription. I'm here to tell you, you don't have to transcribe any of that. We've done it for you, and you can get it for free by clicking the link below the player and entering your email address on the next page. That's it. On with the lesson. Reason 1 why Keith sounds so killer. Stick height. Watch Keith in this clip. Now watch another of my favorite drummers, David Garibaldi. Notice anything? Obviously, Keith is using trad grip, which is definitely harder to master and exacts more wear and tear on your body than matched if you're playing loudly. But look at the stick height. A lot of modern drummers keep their ghost strokes hella low. I teach my students this too. It's important to the modern drum sound. But by using traditional grip, Keith mimics the low volume of the match players, but is able to do that with more stick height. In my opinion, the key is the mechanics of the traditional grip. It's a good way to get carpal tunnel trying to play at high volumes for long periods of time if you don't know what you're doing, but it also gives you this springboard of your back 2 fingers, so that you can make the stick weightless. So Keith's sticks have a lot of travel, and he's setting them down on the drum head gently. Like if you bounced a basketball from chest level, but slowed its descent just slightly, so that the sound it made was. This is all my opinion, of course, but when you watch these videos, I think you'll see why this is what I think. All this space he's playing with also lets him use medium volume ghost notes more easily as well. In the rest of this video, we'll go through some of Keith's classic vocabulary, but a big part of the reason it won't sound exactly like Keith is this stick height thing. Okay, ready for reason 2 Keith sounds so good and so unique? Reason 2, the Carlock hemiola. As soon as I play this, you'll recognize it. Here's a slower version. And here's a faster one. And here I am demoing just one instance. You can play with this. Let's see Keith again. He's also playing the hats like a jazz drummer. Back to me. See where I put the hats. This is optional, but trying to get this simple version will help you feel a little bit more of what Keith is doing. Now, back to Keith. There are thousands of subtle variations of this lick, and he'll go into and out of it. And rather than just get this lick down and then pull it out at cocktail parties, in other words, to avoid the 2024 version of the flurries controversy, I'd try to take all these little variations we're going to discuss, learn them well, then start improvising with them, chaining them together, and try to come up with something all your own. There's your public service message. All right, should we do number 3? Reason 3, that weird rimshot thingy. Okay. Know how all YouTube videos used to promise weird tricks? This is the closest to a real weird trick that you're gonna see. I call it echo rimshots. We talked earlier about the traditional grip, allowing Keith to play with a lot of stick height, but control the volume. This is another cool side effect. It's relatively rare for drummers to play a rimshot followed immediately by ghost strokes. But Keith's technique allows him to get rebound off a rimshot, so he's able to play stuff like this. If you want to try it with matched, it's possible. Just think about making a relaxed stroke into the rimshot, using stick height instead of a wrist pop, and try to allow it to rebound a little. You can combine this with the little hemiola idiom from earlier. This segues nicely into the last groove things we'll talk about. Reason 4. Snare kick polyphony. While not unheard of, intentionally playing the kick and the snare at the same time is pretty rare, but it's something Keith incorporates a lot, as you'll see in this clip. Or this one. I developed a simple, repeatable idiom to get the feeling of this. Here's Keith doing it again. Okay, little review time. I've showed you 3 little vocabulary things Keith Carlock does that make his beats super unique. Now, you'll probably want to practice them, and you can do that more easily by clicking below the player and downloading the free transcription. But don't just stop there. Practice mixing and matching these, so you'll eventually ingrain them more deeply. Then try to improvise with them a little. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about something you can steal from Keith without practicing a lick. Reason 5, Keith's wide open tuning. Keith does hardly any muffling on his drums, and uses coated heads with his toms tuned high and open. His snare is usually medium high as well. He also uses jazz cymbals with a lot of wash. But maybe the most interesting thing about Keith's tuning is his bass drum. It's almost always tuned medium high and pretty open, and Keith doesn't plant the beater in the head. The result is a much more resonant bass drum sound than average. All these things combine to create a gestalt that doesn't sound like any other drummer. Now, let's get into the things you probably came for. The licks. Reason 6, this little ascending, descending herta thing. So the first of Keith's licks you might recognize is this chestnut. Here's another example. Keith likes to use 3 to 4 toms, tuned pretty open, so this little pattern down the toms sounds super cool. Here I am trying to duplicate the basics on a 4-piece, so bear with me. Here I am trying to use it in a sentence. Finally, there's the lick everybody associates with Keith. Reason 7, the lick. Last winter, I did a video on this lick, comparing it to something Gavin Harrison does. Here it is in a Drumeo video Keith did to highlight it. And here it is in the wild. Now here I am trying to play it a little slower. And here I am trying to use it in the wild. Got it? Now stop. As I said before, you've learned 3 groove things and 2 potential fills. Once you've started improvising with the groove ideas and making these your own, I'd recommend throwing in these fills. You can practice them in isolation, but start using them in a groove as soon as possible. And just as before, don't stop there. Use them as a springboard to make something of your own. Seen enough? Well, you guys, did we do a thing? Hopefully these 7 Keith elements will help you understand Keith more. Did I nail him? Was I way off? Leave a comment below, a polite one. And dudes, it's been real. Always enjoy these. See you again real soon in another lesson of the week.